All right, another episode. We're in the 60s. I don't actually know the number of it, but your host Stephen Maxted, a podcast. You'll have clicked and known what episode this is on when you joined. But and we have Michael Mitchell here today with Stay Wild Copy. And Michael, thanks for making time today. I know that we have history from another uh, part of our past of a job that we shared together at the same place. And it's been really cool to see your journey
Yeah,
online. I know we recently reconnected on LinkedIn, and I was so excited to hear more about it because I know a lot has changed on both of our journeys since then. Um, Most want to hear from you about yours today, but why don't you give the listener a little bit about yourself, how you got kind of on the journey of what you're doing nowadays, and just kind of give a little headline news to warm us up for what we're going to talk about today.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I mean, I know we had that little conversation before. It's the first time I'm doing this, so I feel a little bit out of my element. But I mean, it's a very exciting experience, and I appreciate you having me on. So, for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Michael, and I am a copywriter. As you already know, I'm fairly early into this journey. Um, I know I've shared a few of those struggles and things with you already about that, but I'm sure we'll get into some of that throughout this podcast as well. But basically, what I do is I write content and I write advertising content for companies or individuals who are trying to sell something. Most often digital products. This seems to be where I'm leaning towards, and I prefer doing emails. But yeah,
Cool.
that's about where we are.
No, that's awesome. I think that's like a great way to start it off. And I mean, I'm excited to have you on though too, Michael. You invested a lot of energy and effort into, your own brand in the last month too. I forget when we exactly had connected on the topic of, putting yourself out there and being out there. And I think it's really fitting that you're on the podcast today, frankly, because it's just like right up your alleyway.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it was quite. I remember reaching out because I like starting my journey was I was starting on LinkedIn, and it was my goal was to build my personal brand. And I remember reaching out to you. You were one of the very first people I reached out to because I knew you would support me, because I was like,
oh man, for sure.
Steve is a good guy. He's going to help me, and it's just perfect. And I mean, return the favor, of course. So I mean, I'm
Oh
glad that it's
man.
come full loop. I think it's about 3 or 4 months ago, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
glad we've
Yeah.
come here. Yeah.
Well, I'm tickled to hear that. I'm just, yeah, happy to help. It was like I had a meeting with a guy for coffee this morning, just starting off his journey, accidentally called me like basically wrong number scenario. And then I'm like, well, what do you do? And it was like, I've heard of people doing this as like a sales thing. This was not his tactic. He genuinely called the wrong number. And then we actually met for coffee
Okay.
later to
Yeah.
go over his like business and stuff. And he's like a couple of years into it. And I was just like, oh man, like however, I can help. Like, he's mostly invested his time onto like Facebook, doesn't have, LinkedIn or Instagram. And I was just like, oh, you gotta be on like the works,
Got to
especially for what you're
diversify.
doing. Yeah, 100%. Like get on a mix of them, find out what doesn't work before assuming that, and I don't think he'd either got to that spot of like saying one would or wouldn't work. But I think that LinkedIn is such a great
I
tool, connecting folks
was
on there,
there
and
for
you've
a
done it.
second. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I think LinkedIn is just such a
Okay.
great tool
Yeah.
for um, and for connecting folks within like the business community. I know it's been compared to saying it is like going to a trade show online every day. In terms of
Yeah.
like connecting, I think it's so fitting because it definitely could be depending on how you're using it. But what got you started on that path of using LinkedIn to grow awareness around your I guess brand we'll call it, and your business?
Well, originally I hadn't thought about LinkedIn, and you're completely right. It is like a trade show. Like the amount of people who are there doing like expressing their businesses, offering services, everything like that. Like it's just amazing to be on that platform and really get into it. And originally I had no intention of it at all, but I sought out a mentor. His name is Dakota Robertson. He's a very well-known ghostwriting, like a
Oh,
ghostwriter on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I ended up buying his mentorship. And part of his mentorship was learning how to grow on social media, and specifically LinkedIn, in order to like practice your services, learn how to build your online business, and then to market your business as well, like while building your personal brand. So
nice.
that's how I got started, and that's what really got pushed in. And now it's been, oh gosh, about 4 months, almost 5 months, and I post 5 times a week. So I'm writing every day. It's
Cool.
just got me. It was a lot of knowledge in the course. I mean, it was expensive, so there better been a lot of knowledge. But yeah, so that's how I got started, and it's been a trip. I mean, I sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, but it does get a little tedious on LinkedIn as well. Like
Right.
a lot of the information is it's very much the same. It's very repetitive. It's like, these are 5 writing tips from Stephen King. And you're just like,
Right.
guys, we can do so much more. There's more to life than just these writing tips or whatever. So I try to spur out
Totally.
my content. I'll do the tips, but I'll try to do little other things as well, just to keep it fresh and keep myself interested as well. But yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
fun journey.
No, I think that's awesome. What was the I've taken some courses too and kind of like invested more into myself for keeping the saw sharp or the axe sharp, whatever you want to say for that, however that expression goes. But it's been one of the best things that I've done. I used to work in
Yeah.
corporate jobs where they'd send you for training often, and I kind of took that for granted. Although I look back on those opportunities now and I say like, hey, like that was some of the best training and time that I'm so glad that they did that with us. We didn't, know how good it was, but now you kind of have to like do that when you're doing your own thing, as far as investing in
Yeah.
yourself and taking you in that journey. But what really like spurred you to invest in yourself and take that course with this Dakota gentleman?
Well, the big thing was I knew I knew I wanted to get into to being a digital nomad, and I knew I wanted to work for myself. I got very, I just kind of reached the edge of working for bosses that I didn't really respect anymore. And not, some of them, yes, obviously I still respected, and they're incredible people. But at some point, I just hit this spot where I said, I want to be in charge of my own thing. I want to do this.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what spurred me as well. And
nice.
I think you had known this as well. Like right before I left last year, my most recent physical job was in northern Alberta testing
Yeah,
asphalt.
yes.
Yeah, and it's like 13 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 months straight, living out of hotels. My kitchen was an air fryer that I carried in my duffel bag, because they didn't give us a kitchen in any of the hotel rooms. So like
Oh man.
after doing that for another 6 months, I just reached this point. I'm like, I'm out. I got to do something. There's got to be a better way to live. So I took the chance on myself. I've spent the money, and it seems to be going well so far.
I think that's so awesome. Okay, wait. Serious question. Can you eat air fried food anymore?
I haven't since I left.
Yeah. I
I
just think
have
that
been
there's like,
avoiding it for like 6 months.
yeah, there's things I've done in my past where I've like gotten in a cycle of eating specific food or eating it in a certain way, and it kind of wrecks it for me. I know one that sticks out, bit of a throwback for myself to share here, but it was from Costco. They used to have this like red potato salad. I think it was a red
Okay.
potato salad. I don't know. It's kind of like a creamy potato salad thing, right? And it came in like these like 1 kilogram. It was not small. And in university, my parents used like I was living at home and stuff, very fortunate to be able to do that and save some money on the journey. But I remember I would literally get them to like buy me one for myself, and then the house like my parents, my sister would have the other one. I like write my name on it, but I would just like eat it through there, and I ate it for I think it was like kind of like a semester or like that one year of university. That was kind of my thing. Um,
Right.
and I just like cannot look at it the same to this day. And that was a number of years ago. I still love the smell of it, but I'm like can't eat it
Yeah.
because of that too
It's
much overconsumption.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
too much of a good thing, right? You just
yeah, it
overdo
was
it.
amazing.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was a
and
good time, and you look back on it fondly, but it's over now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways, it's
it's
great.
funny sorry,
Yeah, go
no,
ahead.
I just wanna make a point on that. It's funny you brought up the potato salad, because my friends used to make fun of me because whenever we would do a potluck, I always brought the same potato salad from Safeway, and it was just my number one go-to. My friend Josh will still make fun of me for it.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
anyways,
Well,
sorry.
no, that was perfect. No, potato salad stories.
Yeah,
Who would have thunk?
yeah.
But
Yeah,
and you're making that decision. I totally get where you're at because I did kind of get there too after being in like in a specific like industry, but in ag, we went through like some mergers. I got fired a couple of times. Like whatever you want to call it, like getting let go through a merger, you're still getting fired. So just use
yeah,
the F
yeah,
word. And so you get into that space, and then I kind of realized like for me, it was like not having like as much control over your destiny. Like you think that you do, even though you're working really hard in these jobs and stuff, but at the end of the day, that paycheck is actually dependent on many other things. And eventually I got to like what you said there, just it was like stealing thoughts out of my head for where I'd
Yeah.
been maybe a couple years ago, and it was like, hey, you got to take this risk now, because if you don't, it doesn't seem like you're kind of like, not even like necessarily like the getting ahead thing. I was just like, I felt like I was getting dumber, and there's no knock on anyone that I worked with or for at the time, but I just felt like I wasn't getting challenged enough, right? Like, and it was in like I had all these
Yeah.
tasks to do, and it was, it's like I said, great opportunities all the way through my career. There's never been a bad situation, truly, all the way through. I look back on things, I'm like, you learned so much here about this. You learned so much about yourself doing this role and
Oh,
different stuff like
absolutely.
that. So you have those like good momentum moments leading up to that decision, I think, to like go and invest in yourself. But it's like that boat, burn the boats. I gotta say on here. I don't know if you read that one. I feel like you read
Yeah,
a little
I've
bit
seen that
based on
before.
what I've
Yeah.
seen. So
Yeah.
like very good concept, I would say. It's not like perfect. Nothing really is, right? There's not a one
Right.
fit style thing there. But what was one of the harder
What
things for you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Like,
So no, I was gonna make a counter, like a
yeah,
counter
yeah.
question to yours.
Sure.
Um, oh, now I forgot it. Jeez, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was gonna say, because you like you were. I was gonna say, it's funny that you can get in these situations where you're working for another company or whatever, and the financials can be good, you could be comfortable, but it's that one point that you made about you're not being challenged. And I think
Yeah,
that's like the number one thing, where like my past jobs, it just got so monotonous. It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, I do this, I do this, I do this. I've got money, I
totally.
got savings, I can invest, but I'm like, I'm getting bored here, guys. I need something to do. So
Totally.
that's another thing. And I knew you were feeling the same way, because I would consider you like a serial entrepreneur with all the endeavors that you're going down. So I
Yes.
knew you would feel that same way. That's good.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some like lessons to be taken off of that too, because
Yeah.
I think that sometimes the best businesses are kind of sleepers, like almost to the point of like saying that they're boring, but getting really comfortable and pushing like that process for the financial like gains on some of that stuff too. Because I've learned that the cool, exciting thing, or shiny object, as many folks call it, although it can be profitable, sometimes there's so much work behind them. Like when we started doing the rental
Yes,
company,
that's true.
I was like, I love doing it. I love getting people outside. The whole idea of the rental thing I ran for a couple of years out of Winnipeg here was great, but it was so much effort to get folks to go outside just to be active. I realized like, I can do this for like a bit here, but maybe wrong location ultimately. Being in more of like a
Yeah.
vacation spot to do something like that would be more profitable. It might be a little happier to run that instead of trying to like explain to people that like I just show up with the equipment, everything's good. You just have to like show up with your group. It's super simple, but maybe just a population thing in some cases, right? So although I enjoyed doing it the entire time, might not have made the most sense on the books side of things. Ultimately, still like gained a lot of experience doing that, and that's something I don't think you can learn a lot of that stuff via classroom. Definitely could have like a head start from taking like a course on that side of things, but it was definitely stuff and from the learning point of view. But
Did you
and sorry,
um
go ahead, Mike.
yeah, well, you had mentioned that you thought maybe it would have been better in a more touristic spot. Did you ever think of taking that rental company to a place like Clear Lake or something like that?
I had actually, like, oddly enough, on the local scene right now, that lake is shut down.
Oh, geez.
As
Okay.
zebra,
I've
yeah,
been out
no,
of
no, no,
Manitoba for too long.
no. That's okay. That's a whole sub story. But I'd actually looked into bringing other like another business model where you didn't require as much like uh, human capital in terms of like managing them. Um, One of the things, not to knock it, because I'm sure it's going to evolve in the future, but there was quite a bit of red tape locally to bring
Okay.
that other company to Manitoba, whereas other provinces locally, and I mean, it's a nuance of business here, but it's not the first time that that's come up. I've tried bringing other like I guess like franchises to Manitoba before, and it's been met with like just
Mhm.
an extreme amount of red tape that I was not willing to like go down. So that's
All
that's
right.
happened a couple of times, like things that never came to fruition, but like have literal files on them in this office where I'm like, we were so close to like doing the thing. And it's interesting to like look back on that and be like, oh, like that would have been cool to do, but I'm kind of glad with the way that it turned out. That didn't end up working out. Um, and like maybe I just didn't want it enough to like do that, because maybe that would have been like a really great opportunity. One of them
Yeah.
is the thing that did come here that is local to the scene here, is that pedal pub, that giant bike thing
Oh, okay.
that you
Yeah.
like pedal
Yeah.
around on. I guess you stop at breweries and stuff. I don't know if I've ever actually signed up to be like the next individual like on that one to bring it to like Manitoba, and then COVID hit, and then they were like, hey, like, do you want to do this now? And I'm like, I don't know. The world seems like it's a weird place. Like, take me off,
That
even though like,
the most terrible timing.
yeah, it was not good. And I was just like, oh, that's like kind of the shits, because it seems like it would be a good idea still. And someone did follow through with that. I guess that they were kind of like the next person on the, people who had raised their hand to say like, hey, like I want to bring this here, kind of thing. So there was that. But I think, yeah, like having those different opportunities to bring other companies like locally, but then even discovering different like roadblocks is probably like a good thing, because maybe some of them wouldn't have worked out anyways. But I think if
Right.
you generally want to like do something, it's both like the risk tolerance and then the amount of like length of time you're willing to put into it to find success. Because I think a lot of folks in business just stop too early. Like there's like
Yeah.
some, you know, dates and like momentum swings that happen over time, but it's so important to just like keep going if you truly believe in that. And kind of like your direction of things too is like, I'm sure you've seen some ups and downs and on the journey. And I was going to ask you before too, like what have been some like the early on, we'll call it like learning, or struggles, however they appeared for you. What was that like for you, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I would say actually the biggest one is for for myself and other writers and people trying to do their first online business. It's what you just touched on there too, is not having a long enough time horizon and not staying consistent enough with it. So it's
Right. Yeah.
like you could try it for a month, but how
Right.
much progress are you going to see in a month, right? Like you need to look 6 months, a year, 2 years out and be like, can I do I like this enough to stick with it for that long? And will I see the progress I want to see in that length of time? So like that is a huge one. So for me, that was a big thing when I started that mentorship was like, okay, I need to like lengthen my time here, my time horizon. And
Totally.
that was the biggest hurdle that I've overcome, I would say. Because I've
Well,
always liked writing. So like
right.
getting into the writing wasn't too crazy for me. I like telling stories. Even when I was a little kid, I would just tell just stupid, outrageous stories. Like I told my second grade teacher that my grandfather got his hand bit off by an alligator, even though I grew up in a small town and the teacher knew my grandpa. Like they lived a couple blocks away. Like she knew it was a lie. But it's like, I don't know. I like being able to put those stories into writing. So I have no issue with that.
That's awesome. No, and that's
Yeah.
like, what was um, what was the time horizon that was kind of like suggested, or that you have now kind of like put in set in stone for you to kind of like see as like a date of success, or you know what I mean, like a further out date where you're going to look back and be like, or like where you're kind of goal oriented towards, how far out are you
I
looking?
had so when I started, I had a financial goal within the first 6 months, and then I had a financial goal within the first 12 months. So the first one, it kind of depends on the clients and what type of work you're getting.
Yeah,
So I'm still working up to that. I'm not sure if I'll reach that goal, that 6 month goal specifically, but I'm still happy with the amount of progress I've made. So it's not
right.
like I've hit this point and I'm like, I have to quit now because I didn't get it. It's like I've still made so much progress that it would be silly for me to quit in
Totally.
that sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
no, that's awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
What was it like on the training? Because I know that you've invested a lot of time into LinkedIn specifically, and you just mentioned like before we're doing like five 5 posts a week. What has been the biggest thing that you've noticed from doing that? Because I know you're quite active on there. I get to see like the analytics of like my page and like the business pages that we manage to on the marketing side. But what's been one of the biggest like things you've noticed?
biggest thing I noticed is like, I would say the networking or the possibilities to sort of open doors with other people that you wouldn't have necessarily ever chatted with or anything like that. Like I've made a I've kind of been making this a goal of mine recently to hop on more calls and do networking with other writers. And I've just been hopping on with writers. Like I was on one the other day with a gentleman from the States, and the week before that was a guy from Pakistan. And like it's just like the people you meet from all over the world who are in a very similar boat to you, trying to do the same thing, offering their services, trying to grow their business. Like it's very much as cliche as it sounds. It's like building that community. And
Totally.
you do that by being consistent and engaging with all these other accounts and like posting content that is like resonates with this group of people. And it's just, I would say that's the best. That's my top tier thing.
No. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's that it is really cool to do that and then turn those like relationships possibly one day into meeting in person, especially for yourself. If you're like traveling around, there's an opportunity for you in a very different like setting to do that. I know I've done it locally in the Manitoba. I mean, and even just doing travel, like a little bit with some of the companies we do work with, but
Yeah.
eventually going for coffee with folks that you've been like kind of interacting with for like half a year, you're like, hey, we should meet. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're like local here. I'm like, we should like this is kind of strange. We have like basically an online like conversation weekly, if not daily, just with like small things on LinkedIn. That's something that definitely resonates very well with me. But it's cool that you're reaching out and setting up those meetings. I don't think there's anything more valuable than doing like a one-on-one chat, getting to know someone.
Yeah.
And
And
what's
and
it
I
like?
and I had heard people say this so much and I took it for granted. Like I was like, it's not that important. I write by myself. I'll do it. I don't need anybody else. And now that I've started actually talking to people, it's like, no, I think I do need other people. I think it's pretty good. I think
Totally.
these guys were onto something and I just wasn't listening.
Yeah, there's definitely some of those moments where you're like, okay, what I heard a while ago back makes a lot of sense. I wish I would have listened, like kind of listened more thoroughly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's that whole hindsight is 2020, right? Like, oh, I
yeah,
could have listened then, but there's no point
yeah,
thinking about it now. It's like focus on it now.
totally.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
like I guess on that note, and for your business, so what kind of areas are you spending a lot of time like writing and talking a little bit more directly on your business? Like what industries, or is it specific like that, or is a certain like style within the company's brand that you're looking forward to, like where you could offer the best service for what you're doing today?
Well, as of right now, I'm trying to focus on entrepreneurs and online coaches, essentially people who are selling a digital product because I would like to focus more on the email side of things.
Okay.
I can write content and things like that. It's not a problem, but I prefer emails. I prefer newsletters, that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, the I haven't. I know I really should niche down completely. A lot of people are saying this. Well, you get two ends of the spectrum. Some say
Yeah.
niche right down. Some are saying go broad. It's fine. I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess.
Totally.
Um, yeah. So even actually just yesterday, I had an interview with an agency, and I thought I'm not having the best luck with my outreach. Maybe I'll try doing it with an agency, just learn the ropes a little bit more. And they were
Yeah.
specifically B2B founders, or sorry, B2B executives like
Okay.
CFOs and things like that. So they were writing content for their LinkedIn. So it would have
Yeah.
been like that. So yeah, I'm pretty open, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I think that like part of
Yeah,
the process is understanding like if you can find a very specific niche like right out of the gates and you have success and then like that time horizon is long enough where you're willing that works for you. I think it's great, but I
yeah,
think it's also part of like your own learning because within some of the evolution of those other businesses, things change or can change where it's kind of good to have, I think, some of that other stuff on um, already acquired as a skill set because you've done,
yeah,
you know, A, B, C, D, E, F. It's super beneficial for life
for sure.
experiences. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And there's lots of writers that I talk to where they are super niched right now. Like I work with over 40 dad fitness influencers, yada yada
cool.
yada. but
Yeah.
it took them a year and a half to get to that point because they wrote for 20 other different businesses or types of people. So it's like you kind of have to go through the waves and see what content you like writing for, which one you're best suited for, and then like get into it. So I feel like when I'm farther down the road, I'll get more specific. But as of right now, I want to leave it a little open. I want to try a few things, write for a few different people.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want to have fun with it, you know? What's the point if you're not having fun?
Absolutely. And how are you liking the, well, I'll call it kind of like the nomad life that you kind of aspired to make and you have created for yourself now, and kind of working on the road, if I may say, but tell me how that is and what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I will say, like, as of right now, I mean, I've wanted to be a digital nomad for years, and I know it's a bit of a buzz term, and people have this sort of picture in their mind from these influencers of like a laptop on a beach with a screenshot of their monthly financials and stuff. Like, I made this in 15 minutes. It's like, no, you didn't. Or maybe you did, but it took you 5 years to set up your business or whatever.
Right. To be able
But
to do it like that.
like, yeah, like my day to day is probably very similar to what yours is, or what most people who work from home is like. I'm 2 feet from my bed right now on this call, and I sit here and I work all the time. Some days I'll go to a cafe or a co-working space, but like I'll go to the gym, I come back home and I work on the laptop and I sleep right there. But the only difference is I get to do it from wherever I want, and I kind of have the location freedom, if you're free to say that.
Yeah.
The location freedom where it's just like I can, if I wanted to, I could pick up tomorrow or next week and I can go somewhere else. I could go live in Amsterdam, or I could go back to South America. Or I think my girlfriend would be a little mad, but I mean, the opportunities to move around are a lot better. And because I like travel so much, it just made sense for me to pursue that sort of lifestyle.
Absolutely. No, I think it makes tons of sense. We spent some time traveling a little bit this winter and more staying in one spot, but I felt the same way. I was kind of, I mean, it's just managing business, not doing, like work locally in that sense. Same as you, right? It just kind of, you're doing the online stuff. It can be done from anywhere. And if you are traveling, it definitely gave me a lot more confidence to, I'm like, okay, like that is possible in certain ways, depending on like growth and stuff. It would be tricky to continue to do that if we end up growing in certain capacities for like my business setup. But I think that it's just so neat to hear that. And I do, you take such great photos of your adventures for your end of things.
Thank
so
you.
it's not like you're pumping up like that side of your work. I think that's more of a personal hobby, but could certainly creep into a profession. I think on its own is like, you are showing off like some of the stuff that like now you're more local to somewhere out there. You can go and do something really cool for a weekend, like stuff that you can't do. You can't just fly over to Europe to do that if you're working from home. And,
From Winnipeg, it's a little bit of a farther trip. But I mean, but sorry, I just want to add too, like with this lifestyle as well, like you had mentioned, it can be difficult with the business, but like the biggest thing is finding that balance as well. Because I had tried to do it in like 2022. I don't know if I had ever told you this, but I had invested quite a bit in crypto, and it was when I made a stupid amount of money in 2021. So I took the whole next year off basically, and that's when I went and did Central and South America. That's when I went traveling, and I basically, like, I was so focused before I left. I was making all this money. I was like, oh man, I'm hot shit. I got this. And I started traveling. And I just stopped looking at it at all. And my investments just, because I mean, everybody by now knows crypto is just crazy up and down. So I thought I was the smartest man in the world. And then a year later, I felt like the biggest idiot, because it's like the Jim Rohn quote. It's like, you can rest, but don't rest too long because the weeds will take all that you've planted, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's just like you have to have the balance. And if you're going to travel and work, you've got to be able to focus on the work too, or you're going to get screwed.
Yeah. Actually, that was a very good learning on the journey there. That's really cool that you had success doing that, though. I know I've heard a couple good stories about that, and folks taking time to go travel, take time off.
Yeah.
Um,
It's worth it. I advocate for it for anybody. If you've got the time and if you can manage it, you've got the finances in order, go on a trip. Go see somewhere, experience a new culture, meet some new people, go somewhere where they don't speak your language. Feel uncomfortable for a bit. It's nice. Or maybe that's my own perspective, but I think it's nice.
Well, like, do you do those travels like solo? Or did you
Generally, I travel solo. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have done that a couple times.
Yeah, but I think you could probably attest to this as well. Like, you may travel solo, but you meet so many people who are in the same boat as you. It's like, are you really solo? Like, you can be, or you can be with 20 other people who are in the exact same boat as you. So I don't know. I love it. It's great.
What's been the favorite spot that you've traveled to on your adventures? You're very well traveled. I've done a bit of traveling, I think, comparatively, not that it is ever a contest in that aspect, but I feel like you've done more places so far, on your journey.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's funny because I feel like when I go traveling and I meet people, I think like, oh, I haven't been anywhere. But then other people, like my mom, is like, I've never been to Europe. I'm like, okay, fair. So I would say, I mean, it's a difficult question. I really liked New Zealand. It was a beautiful country, very similar to Canada, but more like condensed. I would say like Canada in a sardine can kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then Guatemala was breathtaking, like amazing. The volcano hikes we did there were just out of this world. Like we laid under, like the one, it was Fuego, just outside of Antigua. And the volcano's name is Fuego. And we went up there at night, and it's an active volcano. And we laid on the side of the volcano under the stars and watched it erupt. And that is like, I'll never forget that. It's one of the best things in the world. Another one, Peru was really high on the list. The hike to Machu Picchu is just incredible. And then I would say the Philippines and Vietnam were up there as well. Vietnam, I mean, I could eat I'm going to butcher the name, banh mi sandwiches. I could eat them every day, any day of the week. Oh, delicious.
It's not as much as I ate potato salad.
Yeah, true.
As a kid, but no, that's all. You totally stole the thought out of my brain there too. Around, I was just gonna be like, okay, like what was like the top food? What were there any other like top food items on the travel that you're like, okay, like this is like that was a highlight for me?
I mean, Mexican food. You can't top Mexican food. I think like the sandwiches, the tacos, the quesadillas, the nachos, like you can't. It's my favorite, I would say. Yeah.
You think coffee, right?
Coffee? Yeah.
Okay. Did you get to go on any coffee tours on your travels at all?
I did, yeah. I did. Yeah. I want to say I did 2, but I know specifically I did 1 in Colombia. And we actually went and we like picked the beans.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Have you done that?
I've done 1 in Costa Rica. We didn't go, just shy of, I guess, like picking beans basically. They walked us through like a farm and had this, it was like a chocolate, sugarcane, and coffee tour. So this farm kind of had a mix of things. Seemed pretty substantial based on how many areas they had where they were drying the coffee beans themselves, but not quite like that. But I thought they're just kind of like spun out of my brain here, but I was in California doing some work down in San Diego, and it was referred by the office that I was down there visiting, doing some consulting at the time, to go check out like a few spots, like on my own, either, I don't know, before we get to the office or afterwards if we weren't doing something as a group. And this one place I went to, you mentioned Mexican food though, and this one place was a Mexican like breakfast, like coffee and donut place, just like hole in the wall. And I rolled up, and I guess just part of the culture down there. There was literally trucks rolled through, gentlemen got out, grabbed their coffee and donuts for the road, and then like we're just like cycling out of there. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in there enjoying my coffee and donut. Like everyone else is just kind of like grabbing going, and there's like other coffee spots like literally in the parking lot. Like there is a Star, and I can't remember the name of the place. I did an awesome Google review for them because I just loved it so much and the experience. but I sat in there and they recommended, they're like, okay, well, we have like this coffee, or we have a Guatemalan coffee. And like, but that one's pretty strong. And I was like, I want to try it. This sounds like it's special. Like, I want to try this thing out.
Yeah.
I have never been so buzzed off coffee in my entire life. I was like, it was such a dark roast, or like, I know dark roast is usually like lighter in caffeine, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly. But anyways, it came out like very dark in terms of like the color of the coffee, and but maybe the roast was lighter. I was buzzed like that entire day on caffeine. I've never needed to not have coffee again. It was so great, and it was so full of flavor and so rich though. Even
yeah.
after being like on the coffee tours, I had this one like highlight of food. Not same show, like I like travel that way, but I was just like, yeah, you're right. Like,
well, no,
Mexican food is amazing. So
yeah. Well, and you're right to highlight the coffee from like Central and South America. It is very good. But the one thing I found was very upsetting, or not very upsetting, but it is like part of the life down there, is because they export all of the best beans, all of the best coffee. So that if you go with the locals, they're drinking like Nescafe instant coffee. And I remember we did this hike through like rural Guatemala, and they only drank like the instant coffee, but you could almost see through it like tea. It had, and there was so much sugar. It was basically like sugar water with just one coffee bean chucked in there. And I was like, oh, like this is a sugar high. This isn't even caffeine anymore. This is just a sugar high. But yeah, if you get your hands on those, the quality beans, that's some good coffee. Which I think have you been getting from Guatemala for your coffee there? Because you've been highlighting some coffees lately.
Yeah, we've been sampling some of the brand. Yeah, we're just trying it out. I think some people, when you're talking about doing like stuff like broadly and narrow focused and all this stuff, some people don't understand, I guess, for me and some of my projects, is to highlight this, I guess, while we're talking about it. It doesn't really matter if we never sell coffee or we sell like 2 bags of this stuff. But yeah, we're doing sampling right now, but it's been on my list of things to do before I'm 80, is like make a coffee.
Oh, beautiful.
So no, like it has not a lot to do with if we have sales. Just to say that in case someone's like listening and they hear me think they're, oh God, Steve's on this one again. But we're making coffee. We're doing like 8 varieties. I just finished sampling all of them. And actually the last one was the closest to, maybe that's why it's top of mind, that coffee I had in San Diego, because it was so strong, but it shows you like the roast, gives you the suggested profile that you should taste in them. They are Central America is where they're from. Like they're quite good. So I'd venture to guess, without like having to reach far enough over, I'd fall off screen. But the bags are like right beside me here, and I've just been like, it's so fun that you remembered that. It's so cool to experiment with this stuff. There's a bit of a cost to do it, especially when you're getting like one bag of each thing or whatever. It's not really cost effective at all, but we'll have them online in the next bit, and it'll be a fun thing to say that I did. Like I said, it doesn't have to like always pay off. And sometimes you end up working with companies that you're just really genuinely interested in. I think that's an aspect of business not everyone sees all the time. It's like, I genuinely like want to be excited about the companies that I'm working with. You just get a very better, like you get the best experience, I'll say. You're going to get really good
100%
some of the stuff that we do, but it's so much better when you don't force anything. You end up kind of being on brand with their brand, whatever that may look like. It just makes it way easier, because you're eventually run out of steam on some days. But if you're excited about what they're doing, then it's like a no-brainer.
Well, and it goes back to like what we said before. Like if you're not, you got to have fun with it too. Like there's times to do business, but there's times to have fun too. Like, and especially if it's on the bucket list for 80, why not? It's your business, man. You can do it.
Well, that's how the whole thing kind of started too. It was like, well, I wanted to start a bike company, had some time with the pandemic thing happening, and I was like, well, might as well start now. I've already kind of like drawn up the plan. I've been thinking about it long enough. Might as well get busy with that aspect of life there. But
it's been, sorry, I just want to say it's been interesting to see the progression of your company as well. Like you're going through it. Like I find it very enjoyable to keep up and see what you're up to. Like I check in every couple of days even now, because you keep posting the stories and stuff. It's good to see. I like it.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that. We're definitely more focused in many ways than we were even a couple of years ago. It's just trying to stay busy to stay sane. That's how I kind of said it, or maybe there's, the reverse going on there. But I just always, love to stay busy, be on that next activity, whether that be physically active doing stuff, because we're quite active in that aspect of doing like triathlons and stuff, I find a lot of energy is well spent being physically active. I know that's an important part of your lifestyle as well, especially
Yeah.
being able to go and do those climbs and stuff. How do you keep up with that routine when you're traveling? Like, is there often like gyms nearby? Do you join places to train, or do you have like a?
Depending where you are, like when I'm backpacking, it can be very hard. But I mean, when I'm backpacking, I'm always doing the hiking or all of the walking. It's like 20 to 30,000 steps every day when you're doing that, the
Right.
walking
Yeah.
tours or whatever. So it's just that's where I get it. But here now I go to the gym. So I recently actually I just switched gyms because I came in and I went for the cheapest option and I was like, this is fine. It's a 15-minute walk from the house. I'll
Right.
just do that. And I went there for about 4 or 5 months, and it's just like nothing. Like they don't have disinfectants, so nothing gets wiped down. Nobody puts the weights away anywhere. The lockers are always open, so it's like I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore. So last week I switched, and I've started going to a different one. It's actually closer, but it's like 3 times the price. But it is much nicer. Yeah, and I just find because when you live this sort of lifestyle too, like you can get so caught up with just sitting in the room. Like I said, I'm 2 feet from the bed. So like I wake up, I could sit here. And if I never leave the room, my mental state is going to be straight in the shitter, pardon my language, but it's like, it's not going to be good. So just having that little outlet of going to the gym, or even if you don't have the money for the gym, like just going for a walk or something, it's like, it's so necessary. And I think people neglect it far too often. Like your mind and your body are connected way more than people seem to think. Like you need to move.
Totally. No, very agree there. I've noticed when they've been like either in like slumps in fitness because of maybe a work success, and you get kind of excited and you focus more on that thing.
Yeah.
Or when things like slow down at work, I just try to now invest more time and energy into the fitness side because I know that there is like a great ROI on the energy scale there,
Yeah.
what you just mentioned. Like it's really hard to describe. I think maybe it's
Yeah.
something just like maybe it's something that kind of comes to reality in your 30s, realizing this whole like energy is important. You need to also take care of your body and the way that
Oh,
we
for
look at the
sure.
world nowadays versus the olden days, we'll call it.
Yeah.
So
It's one of those things that I look back and like in high school, I was in all the sports, pretty much all the sports,
yeah.
always. And then I quit and I started working in the restaurant industry and I started drinking more and everything. And I just stopped. And my mental health is awful. And then I came to the realization back in like 2020 after my dad passed, when I changed, my whole life changed basically. I quit the drinking and I started getting more active, and things just progressively got better and better and better and better. If you cut out the bad habits and you work on the good habits and you just focus, like taking care of yourself is such a big piece of the puzzle, and people just seem to neglect it. And I try to say like, come on, let's just do something. Let's go lift a couple weights maybe. But some people just, I don't know. Hopefully they see it someday.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's kind of in the part of it, but there's just so much marketing in front of you that it's like ingrained in us. I think like the access to like food, it depends how you're using it. Like yesterday I had to like this is kind of a weird story, but you can use DoorDash and skip the dishes for like good things. Like if instead of me going to go get like groceries and stuff, I can like save that time because I'm going to go do something like, or have to do something, in my yard or whatever. I'm like, okay, instead of like driving in rush hour to go do this thing, maybe someone else can like come pick it up. A little bit more of a cost, but then I'm not, eating way later and still keeping on like a plan, and then I can work out later, for that aspect of it. But if you're ordering in food for reasons of just like convenience, and it's not good food, I don't see that. I don't think that can be a good thing for you ultimately. Usually they're things that are full of sugar or salt. No knock in any of these companies, but it's just a fact of what's on the label. They even have to disclose how many calories and all their things now. And I mean, if you do that math, I'm not a big proponent of counting calories, just more trying to balance it out and make sure that you're healthy enough in what you're eating, and less ingredients, the better aspect to life. But pretty obvious that it's not like, not very good for you, but it's just so in front of everyone, right? It's hard to like,
for sure.
How do you manage that if it, you're exhausted after a long day of maybe sitting, right? You're like, what do I order? Oh, well, what did I get the ab for, right? That's usually what's in our mind.
Yeah.
So
4 burgers and a shake. Yeah. And like I can't even get like I know exactly what you're saying because I've done it too. Like I'm no saint. I don't eat healthy every day, but like I can tell if I'm on like a 2 or 3 days kind of bad binge, I guess, of like unhealthy eating. And then
Totally.
like you just feel it. And then you just have to go and get back out of it. It's just a matter of being able to get back out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something you don't notice when you're younger as much. Different energy about you. I know I've paid more attention to it maybe too, just because like you said, you're not as active playing like all the sports, and then you like feel
Yeah.
the energy like when you're managing your own life. How did we become adults? You know, you just
Yeah.
get older, you know. Who's in
Yeah,
charge right now? So
oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
like a coach or training on something though is because you used to kind of have this like built-in training program in a way, whether that be in like school, secondary education, or in your job, wherever that was. There was always kind of like hopefully trainings in some aspect going on. But then if you don't take those personal steps to like further yourself and get better at things, like life doesn't come with a playbook or
Oh,
an instruction
absolutely not.
manual. So you kind of
No.
got to build your
Well,
own.
yeah. Well, and even if it did, like it would only apply to maybe 1 out of 100 people because like everybody's
Yeah.
circumstances are different. It's all nobody knows what they're doing. We're just out here trying our best.
Yeah, doing that. I mean, I had a discussion there today about like I don't know, like how to manage like taking advice from folks too. This gentleman who's like earlier on in his career, and I'm like, it's really tough to know, and you really ultimately got to trust your gut at the end of the day on all this stuff because just because like you're sharing your experience with someone else, they've definitely not had the same experience as you, and don't know all the nuances of life that you have going on. Whether that be like your
Absolutely.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, like you've hit the nail on the head with that for sure. Like whatever worked for me may not work for you at all. Like because our circumstances are so different. So I even try to like almost put an asterisk whenever I try to give people advice. I'm like
Yeah.
just right at the end and just like it might not work for you. Because like
Totally.
I don't know. It worked for me, but I think it'll work for you, but I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there was by accident, there was a young gentleman had his like SUV pulling a trailer and has like a QR code on it yesterday when I was leaving my house. Kind of parked in front. I just like took a second look at it. He's like, "Oh, sorry." I'm like, "No, no, I'm taking in like what you have written on the side here." I was like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "It's like a landscape lawn cutting service." And I used to do that when I was like through like high school, university. Did that all the way through, and it was very rewarding. Kind of the first time I worked for myself. Then I got out of that routine for a
Okay.
bit,
Yeah.
and then now I'm back to it. But we were just chatting for a minute, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Like you guys have like a website and stuff." And he's like, "University kid." He was like, "Yeah, yeah, all that stuff," and I'm like, "Oh," but like I also think about like timelines because I think I would have done the same thing, but I would have if I was doing it today, I'd be doing exactly what that kid was doing. Like in terms of like what they have out there for marketing. Back then, you didn't need that. I went and like knocked on neighbors' doors, and that's not so long ago. I literally went and like asked, "Can I cut your grass?" Like
Yeah.
it was just like that. And he might have started that way too, but through the evolution of like tech and him wanting to, be better at his own like craft there, he's had to resort to like doing that at such a, like an early age, but it's almost necessary to get out there for
Yeah.
business. So
Yeah, just the processes of things change, and it's crazy too because if you can make quality content around whatever it is that you do, you can drive an insane amount of business to
yeah,
your offer, to your service, whatever you have, you can do it. Like if he goes viral in Winnipeg or wherever cutting grass, like I don't know, ASMR trimming of bushes, like people see that, people like it, and they just go, yeah, let's get this guy, let's do it. It's
yeah,
weird. It's weird, and people like content, all different types of content. It's the more I learn, the more I'm like, geez, all right, you can make it in 10,000 different ways.
yeah. And there's no like wrong either. I'm just laughing as we're like chatting here, but there's one of the companies we work with is in construction. We spent a lot of time doing or curating organic content, interview style stuff, kind of like a podcast, but just recently doing this. And then we posted a short of them hooking up a trailer hitch, just happened to be on the yard that day.
Yeah.
This was kind of like a highlight for them recently, and I was just laughing at it because that reel of us hooking up the trailer hitch hit like 30,000 views. and it's like the best thing
Right?
that we've done. Yeah, I'm like, and I
That's-
said to the owner,
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know why this is happening right now. Like, this is crazy. You know, trendy audio all along with it. I'll give it that, right? But it's really nothing
Yeah.
fancy. I'm sure people are watching it thinking something's going to happen, you know, potentially negatively with this trailer hitch situation. It's just them landing it on their,
Putting it on.
yeah. And I'm just like,
But that's
yes.
I think people are also gravitating towards more like authentic, real content, like day-to-day real content. Like there's a guy on I don't know if it's TikTok or Instagram Reels where he works a 9 to 5, but he just films himself going to work from a 9 to 5, and he's got over 1 million subscribers or followers, and I'm just like, he's doing the same as most people. He just filmed it. That's the only difference.
Yeah. And that's his consistency, right? He probably went in, hopefully, I mean, I'm guessing that he went in with the mindset, unless he had like early success and then it like encouraged him to keep going with it. But I bet it was like, I'm going to do this for 90 days or something. And then it like really took off. And then it's like, okay, cool. We can definitely do that. I mean, there's like some pretty, like small, obvious patterns I think you can do to like help with that stuff. But, you know, whether it's sending an email, like emails to folks to grab their attention, or recording content, you know, similar to this, not so different than this in many ways. There's always a great avenue to get in touch with folks.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
Michael, what's the best way for folks speaking of that to get in touch with yourself? If someone is interested, listening here and needs some help with the writing and where you're at today. I know we mentioned LinkedIn, but what are the names of the LinkedIn pages and stuff for you, and other social medias?
Yeah. So, I mean, LinkedIn, you can just look up my name, Michael Mitchell. I hope it pops up. It's a bit of a generic name, I guess, but I hope that would pop up. And then on Instagram, I've also started transitioning and putting a lot more of my content on Instagram. It's at michaelstaywild. And then if you want to go straight to my website, I do have a landing page for my copywriting clients or writing clients, and that is just staywildcopy.com.
This has been good. I've covered it all and more on here today. I'm already excited to have you back on in like a year from now, and I hope that is very possible for us to make happen. I feel like we could have kept chatting here for quite some time, but I just want to say thanks so much for making time to be on today.
Yeah, anything for you, Steve. You want to come back in a year? I'm back. This was fun. I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure what to expect, but this was good. This was a good conversation. It's always fun talking to you, man.
Great to continue to stay connected, and maybe next year we'll be traveling doing this podcast. Who knows? That could be really cool.
That could be really cool. Yeah, we could actually meet up in person and have it. That would be nice.
Yeah. So, right on. Okay, we'll chat more soon, Michael. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thank you.